Welcome to a glimpse into my moment. Yesterday was Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all of you amazing mamas out there. And happy Mother's Day to all of you dads out there doing double duty. You're amazing also. And you're not invisible, none of you. Yesterday was an amazing Mother's Day for me. It truly was. And we got to set some new traditions and have an adventure. Adventuring is really important to me. It always has been, but it got packed up and set on the side of my life for quite a while. Yesterday we went to a ghost town, just the kids and I. If you haven't been to Golden, Oregon, I would recommend that you go. It is a state park. It's closed right now, but we were able to look around just enough to see this mining town from the 1850s. And I am a very energy-driven person, and I could truly feel the bustle of life in this mining camp, mining town in the 1800s. And it was beautiful. It was absolutely stunning to connect and to truly have my children away from the world, away from the normalcy and realities of our shifting life. I had hoped to do this podcast yesterday, but time just didn't allow for me to do it. And so I still feel like it's incredibly important to talk about this message for a little bit though. Mother's Day, celebrating the moms and all the things, amazing things that moms do for kids. I wanted to slow that down and break it down a little bit. As I have been listening to some of my listening audience, I am hearing a lot that, and I've heard this from a friend of mine who is a man who approached me because he has a very close friend who is in a verbally, mentally, emotionally abusive relationship. It sounds a lot like what I am breaking a cycle of. And much like where I was, because there is no hitting involved, we women tend to think that we're doing the best thing for our kids by staying there. And so I wanted to walk through that from the viewpoint of a mom and what I learned on my journey of being a better and a stronger mom. I, for years, did not think that my kids had any idea at all what was happening in our home. And I thought that I was doing the right thing by staying in my marriage and never questioning. While I would question, I would never explore what my mind knew wasn't right. I would never allow myself to travel down that road of, is this normal? Is this okay? Is this right? I know it's not right, but is it right? Do I have the ability? Do I have the right to set a better standard? And I naively didn't realize that a lot of the subsequent childhood issues that I was seeing develop in my young, at the time, children was due to the verbal and emotional abuse and mental abuse that was very covert in our home. And I know that there are people in the community, my community, who they don't believe this. They don't believe this is my life. They don't believe my story and why I'm leaving. And that's neither here nor there. I'm not here to prove them right or to prove them wrong. But I am always going to stand by the fact that I have made the right choice for myself and my children. And as a mother, that is what I am supposed to do. And that is what I am designed to do. That's what we mothers and we fathers, you fathers, are challenged to do. The hard work. And in becoming my best self as a mother, I had to do some really hard work to best protect my children and to best set them on a course that is healthier. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it right after this break. when I realized that one of my sons was struggling because he wasn't as fit as he felt that he should be. Oh God, it was so cute and lovely. Delight my mama's heart and soul. All mamas love their babies, right? I didn't look at his weight the same way that he did. It hurt him. It hurt him because of what he heard at home, what he heard in his own safe space of his family. And I was too blind to see it, to recognize it. My mom saw it. My mom did talk to my ex about it. In 2015, she did. She was very bold, and she gathered a lot of research, much like I would do. And she talked to him about the way that he talked to his children and his wife. And for a little while, things got better. I was not to the point where I was able to listen to what she was saying, and truly neither was he. The weight issue that my son was having was on a watch by the doctor, and it was not anything that she was worried about outside of, let's focus on maintaining where you're at. As you grow in height, you will grow into your body. You are fine. You are a wonderful little person. Just keep on this healthier track. Food, as we all know, food is an escapism. It's a way to mask our feelings of inadequacy, our feelings of grief, our feelings of loneliness, of you name it, right? Food can comfort us through those moments. And that's what was happening for one of my kiddos. And probably for me at that time. 2015 is quite a while ago. And, 5 babies, a mama body. That's not in a household where dedicated time to exercise was considered selfish. It was difficult to take that baby weight off, and it was difficult for that little boy to thrive in that environment. So he continued to hate his body. And he did get tall and taller and taller, and he got his weight as the doctor monitored his weight on a quarterly basis. First it was, I think it was every other month for a year, and then quarterly, and then we went to semi-annually and then annually. But he got into a healthy weight range, and calories became a common word in our house. I was raised where we didn't talk about weight or calories, so that was a really big mental shift for me, but I was encouraged by my doctor, and I followed everything my doctor said I could follow. So I felt very empowered by her words and her plans. I still didn't realize what state my marriage was in and what effect the verbal loathing of not being fast enough on a sports field, of things that were chosen to eat, the effect that was having on my child. So as that little guy continued to grow, we started to see some other behaviors manifest. Self-loathing turned to self-hitting, and that turned very early, I would say 2nd, 3rd grade, and just very self-destructive thoughts mentally. Just a cascading waterfall of self-hate in this beautiful child. And every time I talked to my doctor, or the pediatrician, about that, she would have ideas, and we would talk about psychologists, and we would talk about the mental illness that we were worried might prevail, because we knew that his dad suffered from anxiety, panic attacks, some really strong mental health crisis diagnoses that required medication. And so that was something that even Dad and I would talk to the doctor about, because we were concerned about that as well. So as he began to develop these tendencies of self-hate, self-harm, it really became quite frightening. And our marital state was plummeting into a really black hole as all these little children began to grow. And eventually the words, "I want to kill myself," popped out of one of my children's mouths, and I was devastated. There was tears and self-hate consuming this child. Consuming. We're an idyllic looking family. How could that have been happening to me in my family, in the picture perfect world I had created? It could be happening because what I had created wasn't honest. It wasn't respectful of every child that I had. They were all struggling. Not in grades, not in smiling in public, not in being the amazing people that they are in school with their peers, but it was beginning to manifest in multiple ways internally. See, what I learned as I traveled this road is that domestic abuse affects everybody in the house. And when you begin as a parent, as any parent, when a parent begins to verbally dislike things about their children, or physically or emotionally, mentally, when you begin to point out all your children's flaws to them, they don't actually begin to hate you as a parent. You just rob them of their ability to love themselves. So what I saw happening in me, my lack of self-worth, my lack of self-love, I began to see in some of my children. And that's a pretty horrible thing to see. We'll be right back after this break. Thanks for staying with me. It's a horrible thing to realize that your child hates himself or herself. It's even a bit harder to process at first that the environment where you think that you are giving them every ounce of love that they could possibly need isn't enough. Because I failed on protecting my children from the same thing that was destroying me. I failed to recognize it. I failed to see it. Until one day when I did see it. In 2018, and I know in episode 1 I touch on this, but when my daughter looked up at me with alligator tears falling out of her eyes and she said, "Mommy, are you going to divorce Daddy?" And I said, panicking, grasping for footing, not understanding how she could see this, how she could know what I was thinking. She was 9 at the time. And I said, "Why would you ask that?" And she replied with tears and hugging me as tight as she could. "Mommy, Daddy loves you. He just shows it by being mean." Oh my God, that was the most disgusting moment. I was filled with disgust and shame. And I knew that I was done. I knew in that moment. I already knew, but that moment was the nail in it. That moment began my acceptance of, while I am a freaking amazing mom, I was failing as a mom in the most very basic of things, of teaching my children what a loving house, what a loving life, what loving yourself is. I was about to unleash onto the world victims or abusers, or victims and abusers. Who knew? Who knew what they were going to turn out like? God, I was disgusted. I was so disgusted with myself. I wasn't even mad at him. I wasn't. I was mad at me. What Sarah gifted me in that moment of innocence was my power back. My power to change their path, to change my path. She gave me the greatest gift I'll ever receive. The ability to see myself as a mom through her eyes. And it was eye-opening. So, I immediately began mentally figuring out how to make changes. Not long after that, no, less than a month after that, Elijah was in a soccer game and was in a collision, a very vicious game, and he came out of that with a life-altering concussion. And that was in 2018, and here it is 2020, and he is still feeling the effects of that game and that concussion and that horrific moment which changed his life in the course of the direction that he was headed, that our family was headed, and it put my life on hold for the immediate leaving. But around that same time, or just before that time, Emily had swooped in, my friend Emily McIntyre, and taught me the stop technique. Stop sign hand. You will not talk to me that way. You will not talk to our children that way. And that immediately diffused and reduced the anger, and it empowered me to take more charge. It empowered me to be a better mother. It empowered me to no longer hover around everything in a constant, amped up, what's going to happen next. And her giving me that power became my ability, my first step, I suppose, in the right direction of getting my children the help they needed. We'll be back right after this. Thanks for joining me again. So it took a while. It took till probably April, May of the following year to get my children into counseling. And through this time frame, the suicidal ideology, the self-harming, the hateful, rageful fighting with one another, the lack of self-worth, the lack of self-esteem, the not wanting to be in charge of things like returning an item in a store, like to be away, to be separated. I saw in some of my children the public persona and then the self-worth that they felt that they had and the issues that arose from that. And it was devastating. When we started therapy, there were some, I'm going to be respectful to my children and not to go into details, obviously, but there were some pretty big lows, pretty awful moments that derived from not feeling valuable to themselves, not understanding how to handle the emotions that would come out of our home. And in less than, I'm kind of counting my mind, but in less than 5 months, I saw a significant change in our biggest struggles, the self-harm, the suicidal ideology. In about 5-6 months of therapy, I saw those diminish and change. And now here we are, almost a year away or a year out from the kids having the ability and access to help. And those thoughts are almost gone. They are almost completely gone. And for me, knowing that the only reason that they got into therapy, that they got the help that they needed, that they have the ability to be an independent individual talking with a skilled professional without me in the room, without dad in the room, without any of us having any idea what they're talking about, but that is their right to be who they are, who they want to be, in a safe environment, and work out some of those learned self-loathing behaviors. To see that we are so far progressed down the road, and this is for all 4 of my children in different aspects. Not all had the same issues. But the 2 worst issues, actually the 3 worst issues, because having no self-worth is a disgusting thing. I know this because I have that. I have low self-worth, low self-esteem, low self-confidence. Internally, you would not know that externally, but internally I do. I battle with those things. It's getting better, way better, but it's still there. It's still an issue for me. So if it's an issue for me at 50, I knew I wasn't doing the right thing for my kids. I'm an amazing mom, but I know that I became an outstanding mom when I forced us all to get real and to start being authentic to our problems. If you want to self-harm, why? If you have suicidal ideology, why? You're an amazing person. If you are struggling with your emotions, why? It's okay to not be okay. So on my Mother's Day conversation with you, I guess it's just more about me leveling up, more about me putting it out there for the world that it was 2018 when I truly started becoming the mother that I wanted to be. And then 2019, through abusive situations, from learned behaviors that even my children had, that I realized what a dark spot I had allowed my children to get into, because I hid from the fact that we were in an abusive household. And in 2020, looking back from this treatment plan and knowing that we still have a lot of work to do, I am no longer terrified to have these little people go out into the world, because they are unlearning some learned behaviors. They are learning that they are worthy and they are amazing. And not because I tell them, but because they are starting to believe it. The suicidal ideology, the self-harming are gone. We are still working on abusive tendencies that were learned, but they are so much better. And I can say with a smile they're getting close to gone. So on this Mother's Day, day after Mother's Day, it really is just a thank you to my daughter for showing me at 9 years old how I was doing no favors to my children by staying, and in her innocence, she saved all of us. It's a hard thing to admit, but it's true. I think one of the most powerful things that we can do is just truly be honest with ourselves first, be honest with those we love, and be honest in what we project to the world. And I feel like for the first time in my parenting, my adult life, I'm beginning to be honest. And interestingly, as I've admitted this and not published it yet, but I will soon, I feel like a weight has lifted and I feel better. I feel a smile, and I feel like maybe by finally admitting all of that my hiding and what I thought it was giving them really was destroying them. Silently, secretly, shamefully. So much shame. I feel like maybe I have the right now to be called a good mother. Because I am putting me first, which allows me to put them first, because they are my greatest achievements, and I will be with them every step for the rest of my life in whatever way they need support. And if that means none, then that's okay. But if it means that they stumble and fall and they need mom for a moment, I'll be right there. Well, happy Mother's Day. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Thank you so much for listening to my journey and my confessions, my deep secrets. I'm a sharer, so you listening does help. Kisses. Happy Mother's Day.